Insurance submittal and review with our one and only Mr. Christopher Nolan.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'll try to get this so that nobody has to take a sip of coffee to stay awake. Ryan, can you go to the next slide for me? And the next one after that. Thank you. Good afternoon, everybody. Really what we're trying to do is two words: achieve compliance. Okay, that's really, just keep that in mind, achieve compliance. I'm going to simplify everything written on this slide by saying that we really want to be able to get everybody on the same page as quickly as possible so that we achieve compliance and the work can get started. You can go to the next slide if you want. Okay, next one, please. Okay, this is a chart that's given to everybody up front. And what it does is it lays out basically a roadmap of how we come to understand what the compliance is going to, what the insurance requirements are going to be. It's categorized a little bit. I actually categorize it A, B, C, and D from the top to the bottom. And that's how I determine what actually has to be in a certificate of insurance. I use this as my basis. This is the same thing given to everybody else. So it's fairly straightforward. And I'm always here, of course, to answer questions. I'm sort of a one-man team on this one, but I take very little vacation, so I'm going to be available most of the time if you have questions. Can you go to the next slide, please, Ryan? Okay, apart from just the actual amounts that we have a few things that are important that we have. I've highlighted them here just to make sure that we know. There's an immunity clause endorsement, a 30-day cancellation, waiver of subrogation, port authority as an additional insured, and the most important of these things right now is anything written in accordance with written contract is not really acceptable, but we can get to that as a case-by-case basis. I just want to make sure it's upfront so that when you see that wording, you know that we're not going on the same page. Next slide, please. Okay, can we go to the next slide, please? Thank you. Okay, this is the bane of my existence right now, in the fact that it's hard to sell this because we've had a government immunity clause for quite some time, but in 2022 there was an exposure and the legal team decided to up this a little bit. They've added a sentence. 9 out of 10 times this goes through without a problem, but that 1 out of 10 times there can be a lot of back and forth. So what I'm trying to do is put it up front to let you know that it's there, that it's going to be required, and the sooner we can come to a conclusion and shake each other's hands on this and make sure everything's together, the better. But again, it's been here for a long time. It's just a rewording. I have all of the explanation from the legal department if you need to see it, and we'll just go from there. Okay. Thank you. Can you go to the next slide, please, Ryan? Okay. And the next one, please. This might need to be made a little bit bigger, Ryan, if you can. I don't know. What we've done here is this is also something that's provided to everybody that's participating in this. The highlighted sections are the parts where on the left you see the limits as required, the effective dates, additional insured, etc. All of those are highlighted here in the yellow portions, and that's where they all go. So we've done that to make it easy, so you can basically do reference A to reference B, one, to the left side to the right side. Ryan, can you go to the next slide, please? Most common issues. Can we see the next slide, please? These are the most common ones. Okay, these are the ones that keep showing up that create the most pushback. Okay, so the project number not being on the COI is very important. Okay, when it says wrong or expired dates, it's usually when someone's trying to do work and it's going to go into July, but the COI expires in March. That is a problem. So we need to make sure, and I usually catch that and I send it to you, make sure that we have that. Insufficient coverage, additional insureds. When it's one of the airports in New York, the city of New York must be added as an additional insured along with the PA. Waiver of subrogation needs to be in there. We have a new requirement, exegesis address. The certificate holder needs to be, the exegesis address needs to be in the certificate holder because that's the company that's managing all of our certificates of insurance and making sure that they are compliant and sending out anything that needs to be renewed, communication, anything that needs to be renewed. And number 7, of course, the immunity class. Can you go to the next slide, please, Ryan? And the next one, please. Okay, so this is really basically just the same thing that I just got finished saying. And the reason I'm summarizing it again is because it is important that we view it for what it's worth. We need to understand that not only the amounts, but we need to have the sort of the left-hand side of the report card and the right side. You know, you've got the grades, but you've got the comportment. So we have to have both of them together in synergy to make sure it works. Can you go to the next slide, please, Ryan? And the next way from that one. Okay, key takeaway. I'm just going to say the highlighted one is the risk financing is the resource for all of your insurance questions. Okay, so please reach out to me. I am available. I make myself as available as possible. I do my best to turn around as quickly as possible on these things. I recognize that this can be something that's a bump in the road, and I try my best to clear that bump out, clear this, you know, the tree that fell out of the way so that we can get on with doing what we have to do. So please start submitting your COIs as soon as possible so that if there's any problems, we find them quickly, get them resolved so that we're not a day and a half before work is supposed to start and end up with problems that you know, there's any of the problems that have been aforementioned. An important thing is each contractor in direct contract with the tenant is the one that we need the COI from. We are concerned, we in risk manager are concerned with the prime on that one. And we do have the bulletin, which is that chart in the TCAP manual that you can refer to. But I also encourage you to please reach out if you need to. Okay, I don't want anybody feeling like they're unsupported. I'll do my best to hold hands and however we need to do it. I think I've you know been as, like I said, responsive as possible to everybody who's you know come out with questions or are needed help, and I continue to do that. I take pride in the fact that I've been able to do that. So we can go to the next slide, please. And any questions?